What do you do when you have so much chicken left over and a little bit of gravy? Let's get creative and make a chicken pot pie. Roasted chicken's already done, gravy is already done. All we need to add is the veg. Why not? Super simple. So we're gonna get started by sweating our veg. I have a nice stainless steel skillet right here that I'm gonna go ahead and crank the heat up and put in some olive oil. About a couple tablespoons of olive oil right in there. And I'm gonna let this get really hot so I can sweat my veg. And in this bowl, I've got, you can see some celery right here. I've got some white onions, and all the way underneath at the bottom, yep, some diced green bell pepper. So this is like the Cajun Trinity right here. And we're gonna add something to it to make it the Cajun, whatever the four is. It's not a Trinity. Whatever, quad. The Cajun quad. We'll call it the Cajun quad. So I'll add some fresh garlic in there too. While this is warming up, I'm just gonna get my garlic cloves. And this is some pretty big garlic, so I don't wanna overpower it. I think I'm just gonna get one nice big piece right there to add to it. This is getting hot. I'll put my garlic on the side and get my wooden spoon. I did the dishes today, so here's my spoon. All right, says the oil sheets over the pan and runs pretty easily. It's pretty close to ready. All right, so I'm just gonna go ahead and pour my veg in. And it'll start sizzling here in just a minute. And to really draw out a lot more of that moisture, I want to season it with about a teaspoon of kosher salt. Okay. Just mix it right up. Look at that. Yeah. All right, it'll take about 10 minutes or so for these guys to sweat out a little bit. I just want them to release some moisture and start to smell, and we'll just move on from there. The vegetables are sweating, and you can see that the amount of it looks like it's really gone down a lot, but that's because they're all moisture. Vegetables are made mostly of water. So as I sweat, it's going to release a lot of moisture, which is also going to shrink their size a little bit, the little pieces. But that's fine. That's perfectly fine. This is getting softened. It's not getting a lot of color to it, which is great. The onions are getting just a little tiny bit brown, but that's okay. That's okay. That's great. So from here, I turn my heat down a little bit. Now it's time to press in the garlic and saute it for a little bit longer, or sweat it for a little bit more. So I can get it in. And there we go. Skin and all, and press right through. Oh yeah. There it is. It's a lot of garlic. Okay. So I'm just gonna warm this up until it gets really fragrant. And that takes right about now. So some of the veg is starting to stick because a lot of the water has evaporated out. So I just want to hit it with just seriously a touch, maybe 1/8 of a cup of white wine. Don't judge. Oh. Okay, maybe now it's time to start judging. Ah! Yay! We're safe. There, just a little bit. The Pinot Grigio. Doesn't really matter what kind of wine you use. If you can drink it, you can cook with it. So all this is doing is keeping the veg from sticking and burning. It's deglazing the pan and adding another dimension of flavor, just a tiny little bit of sweetness. So when cooking with wine, it's very important to let it cook for a few minutes. So that way the alcohol burns out and you're just left with a beautiful wine and delicate notes of the flavors that it's going to go ahead and contribute to your dish. So I want to brighten it up even more, and I'm going to put just maybe half a teaspoon of lemon zest. So I have a lemon right here that I zested these lemons. I zested about 4 lemons a little while ago because I'm going to use it for something else. So there we go, about 1/4 of a teaspoon. Not much, just enough to brighten it up. Okay, so the veg is softened up. I have also some beautiful fresh carrot medallions right there. So I shred all of these. Actually, I sliced all of these up. Fresh carrots that I'm going to go ahead and put in. Now they're sliced really thinly, so it's not going to take too long to soften them up. And I don't want them super soft. I just want them cooked. You know, just barely cooked. I still want a little bit of a bite, a little bit of a crunch. There, all right. So I have a bag of frozen peas right here. Let's see. Bunch of peas, and I'm going to cut these guys open and let it rain. I think half a bag is more than enough because we're going to keep adding and adding and adding, and we don't want to overdo it on one element. You know, this is a chicken pot pie. It's not exactly a pea pie with chicken, you know. So I want to cook this until the peas are like just barely thawed. Okay, this is where I like to go ahead and start seasoning things a little bit, maybe put in some fresh herbs. Unfortunately, because my garden kind of got a little frozen, you know, from this deep freeze that we had a few weeks ago, things haven't really fully recuperated yet. So I still have some dried herbs, and that's all fine and good. It'll do the trick. If all else fails, we're going to go to the default Italian seasoning. And it's really good because it has marjoram, and it's got oregano. It's got a little bit of thyme in there, so I don't need very much. I'm just going to pour some in my hand. It's about 1/4 teaspoon. And I'm going to crush it with the palm of my other hand. Just like this. And just let it fall in. I don't want it too herbaceous. I want the sweetness of the vegetables to really shine through and sing. And I think that this seasoning, these dried herbs, are just going to help and give it another dimension. So you can see here the peas are beautiful green. They're not white anymore from the ice, from the freezer. I'm going to taste. All right. This is a perfect texture. They're warm all the way through. Still very sweet. And they still have a pop whenever you bite into it. That's where I want to keep it. So I'm turning the heat all the way down to low. Stirring a little bit. Now normally I would be seasoning and adding salt and adding spices and adding all kinds of other different things. However, when I roasted my chicken, like the other night, I took the pan jus and made a gravy out of it. So I have all of the seasonings from the chicken and the drippings. All of that's really well worked into this leftover gravy. So I'm going to take this and simply pour it into my veg. And then we're going to season it from there because it's always easier. You know, you can always add, but you can't take away. And yes, it looks thick for a gravy. It's because a gravy is fat and flour, and whenever you refrigerate it, it kind of gets a little solid. So to thin it out, the heat will take care of that. We also have our helper. All right. I mean, this gravy is so fragrant. Like, I would think that there's chicken roasting in the oven right now. It is that fragrant, that beautiful. Just barely start to simmer so that it all starts to come together. Gotta taste it. This is where seasoning is crucial. Right. A little bit of peas, a little bit of carrot, some celery and onion, a lot of peas. Okay, that's the bite. It's very good, very good. It needs a little help because there's a nice little spice on the back end. So I'm gonna hit it with just a pinch more salt, like literally ½ teaspoon salt. Oh, that's so nice, that heat on the back. Ooh. About a 4-second grind of fresh black pepper, which is a pinch, maybe 1/8 teaspoon. But I'm gonna go for the big guns. I have my gunpowder seasoning right here. Put just the tiniest little sprinkle. Like, you know how delicate one of those fan sprinklers are, like on the very outskirts? It's like just, you know, just like a really super light sprinkle. That's all I want. Super light sprinkle of my gunpowder seasoning. Mixing it up, and I'm noticing that some of the veg is starting to stick to the bottom of the pan. That's all right. It just means I need to turn my heat down to low, all the way down to low. Still gonna simmer, still gonna warm everything up. Sip of water, cleanse your palate. It's always good to have water nearby, especially as you're tasting and seasoning your food. You want to taste it with as much of a clear palate as you can, so that way it doesn't become overly seasoned, or you kind of become a little bit blinded to it, you know? That's the trick right there. That's the trick. All right. Pinch more salt, another 1/4 teaspoon right there. Mix it in. I'm gonna take the rest of my shredded chicken because I did put it all away. Big pieces of chicken. I'm not talking like tiny little shreds, actual pieces. See, about the size of my pinky. So it's a chicken pot pie. This is a hearty dish. If you're gonna eat chicken pot pie, I want you to know there's chicken in it, right? You don't wanna search for it. So here we go. All of my chicken. Sauce is really thick. I'm gonna hit it with another splash of wine to thin it out a little bit as it warms up. It's about 2 more tablespoons of wine. I'm gonna chop just a little bit of fresh parsley. Not very much, just a little bit for, you know, an elevated, a fresh, herbaceous note. That works. Let me get my knife. Big guy here. Chop it all up. Okay. If you get a stem or 2 in there, don't sweat it. It's perfect. Stems have so much flavor as it is. So just a little bit. That's about 2 tablespoons of parsley. I've got half of an onion already diced up in there. I've got half of a green bell pepper diced up. I've got about a cup of celery chopped up in there. That's the hearts and the stalks. Peas, carrots, chicken, wine, gravy. Oh, lemon zest, seasoning. And that may sound like a lot, but it really isn't. This is just an amazing dish. All right, I'm killing the heat now. My pastry crust is actually resting in the refrigerator, so as soon as that's done, we'll put it all together, put it in the oven, and watch the magic that comes out of it. Okay. 15 minutes in the oven, and our pie crust is par-baked, which is French for perfect. Okay, so it's not French for perfect, it's half-baked. Anyway, so the foil is still kind of warm, but it's okay, you can still handle it. It's cool enough. And that olive oil I put on the bottom worked perfectly to keep the beans from sticking. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now there's just been a little tiny bit of shrinkage, but it's okay. You know, the crust kind of retracted a little bit around the edges, but it's fine. But look at that. You can see the spots of butter in there. This is so good. And the smell is like one of the richest bakeries that you could ever walk into. It's buttery and it smells so rich and decadent. And I can actually see all the different layers in there, like, you know, heavier spots of butter and lighter spots. This is just going to be absolutely incredible. Okay, so there's a little bit less of my pie filling now because somebody was in here doing quality control, but to a little bit of an excessive level. Okay, no big deal. I'm taking my Parmesan cheese, which is the very last ingredient that has to be mixed in, and I want to put about half a cup of Parmesan cheese into my mixture. Okay, the reason I'm doing this off of the heat is because I want it to melt together in the oven and make it super rich. Oh my goodness. Now the Parmesan cheese gives it like a really nice earthiness. It just adds to that rich, creamy flavor, little added umami. Okay, and find my spoon. Give it one final taste to adjust the seasoning before it bakes. Still looks good. Oh my God. This is perfect. Okay. super creamy. I taste the parm. I taste the herbs. So decadent. And the vegetables still have that wonderful crisp and pop. The carrots and the peas. This is going to be the chicken pot pie of all chicken pot pies for the rest of your life, I promise. Okay. So I know that nice big bite I took didn't exactly help to add into the amount that I have for filling here. That's okay. So what I'm going to do now is make more noises. But I'm going to set this aside in order to make my biscuit topping. What I love about these biscuits is that they're free form, okay? They're totally free form biscuits. I'm not overly concerned about the amount of quantity of things that I'm putting in here. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I work more by touch and by texture. Now I know a lot of people are going, oh, Keisha, baking is exact and you have to do this. Yeah, it kind of is like for most things, but this is like a wet batter that I'm pouring over a chicken pot pie to bake. So as long as it's got the crispy outside, the fluffy inside, I'm a happy girl. I'm going to start with 1.5 cups of flour. 1 cup there. And there's another one. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and add in a teaspoon of kosher salt right there. I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of sugar. Why? Because, well, sugar is pretty awesome. I'm going to put in about a teaspoon of baking powder right there. And I'm also going to put in about 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. Right there. All right. Mix it all up. To this, I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of sour cream. Why sour cream and not, butter? It's biscuits. Well, sour cream is fat. Fat is flavor. And I have a ton of butter in my biscuits. But sour cream also gives a rich, tangy flavor. I mean, so good. Super rich flavor. It just adds another dimension, yet another one of those dimensions that we're always looking for to add in to accentuate and really enhance our dishes. All right. I'm going to go ahead and pre-open my bottle of tonic water because it's about to get real messy in here. Okay. So I'm doing the wet hand, dry hand technique where I've got one hand getting really wet and I'm just working it into the flour just like I did the butter. Not nearly as time consuming because the sour cream is not nearly as solid as the butter. But I'm working it in really, really well. And it's starting to come together fast, looking like coarse sand. See? There it is. So this is the basis of our biscuit. Timer's up. To bring this all together, I want to add about 1/4 cup of my tonic water. There it is. And again, the effervescence of it, just the carbonation is going to give it even more lift. I'm all about those layers, all about those flakes. There it is. It still seems a little dry, just a little, but a lot of the dough is also still sticking to my hand, so that tells me that there's still room for it to pick up more of these little pieces in the bottom of the bowl and incorporate it all together. All right, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this. It's time to get dirty. I have no problem getting dirty. There we go. So it's just enough to bring it all together. See? Now I'm going to go ahead and clean my hands a little bit simply by rubbing them together. Gets a lot of that excess off. Very nice. Okay. And because this is still very wet and very loose, it's super pliable. So I can actually just pinch off pieces of it and put it across the pie, the surface of the pie, and as it bakes, it'll expand and kind of come together. So let's go ahead and switch these guys out now so I can do that. Because I've got a hungry crowd over here. I mean, I know you can't really hear them, but I do have kind of a hungry crowd. And they want food. But this is one of those things where we just appreciate the rusticity of the dinner. There. Nice. Pretty. All right. I'm going to go clean my hands, and then we're going to top this off. All right, to put the finishing touch on this chicken pot pie, I want to cover up the biscuits really nicely. I want to get a beautiful golden brown, and to ensure that, I'm just going to take a little bit of milk and dab it over my biscuit dough. And it's going to make it brown up really, really beautifully. All right, we are done with our chicken pot pie. All right, the dish is still warm, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is what it looks like before. We're going into the oven. We're going to check it at 15 minutes to see if these biscuits have puffed up and have browned. And as soon as the biscuits are done, we know dinner's done. So we're going to check it at 15 minutes. Here we go. Oh my God, that's hot. The timer's finally done. Now, I did say 15 minutes, but the biscuits weren't quite as brown as I wanted them to be, so I put an extra 5. But look at that. Ooh. They did puff up just a little bit. They spread out just a little bit. And they're beautifully golden brown, as you can see. So the finishing touch on this rustic, amazing chicken pot pie is a little bit of softened butter, just brushed all around the edge of the crust, just for that extra sense of moisture and flavor and just decadence. Look at that. So I'm gonna brush this all around the crust. And of course, on the biscuits, I mean, geez, what's a biscuit without butter? Sad. That's what it is, a biscuit without butter is just sad. There we go, piping hot chicken pot pie. Homemade pastry crust, the best crust that you're ever going to eat, I promise you. It's silky smooth, it's buttery, it's flaky, it's got layers, and watch the video to remember the secret ingredient, right? That'll get you there every time. So here we are. I'm just gonna go right in and get some of the filling. The carrots are tender, but still just a tiny little bit crisp. So they kept their integrity. And look, I see some peas right here. They're just calling out to me, going, Keisha. Rightfully so. They're beautiful, very bright, very vibrant. Pop of the peas with the creamy inside. It's just perfect. This is the chicken pot pie recipe that is going to be the go-to for your family. Super easy, super quick, always delicious, guys. Kitchen Bravo has got you covered. Enjoy. I'm just gonna dig right in right here. Queso, queso.